Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss session 7 in module 3. So, today we are going to discuss systemic design philosophy and code-based systemic design methods. So, in this, what is the systemic analysis and design verification? Design for gravity loads and check for moderate and severe earthquake. What are the factors influencing the earthquake resistant design? Geographical location, where it is located, site, soil, and what type of foundation that is provided also plays an important role while designing the earthquake resistant structure. And what type of building it is, whether it is a school building, college building, or a hospital, or commercial purpose, or it is a residential. So importance, what is the importance of the structure also plays very important role in earthquake resistant design. And what are the dynamic characteristics of that building that needs to be taken care of. These are the few factors that influence the earthquake resistant design. So what is earthquake design philosophy? The likelihood of collapse after a very severe earthquake should be as low as possible. Even after a severe earthquake, the building should not collapse. So care should be taken so that there should not be a loss of life. Damage to non-structural element caused by moderate earthquake should be kept within the reasonable limits. If the earthquake is moderate, then non-structural elements failure can be minimized. Although damage to non-structural elements caused by moderate earthquake should be kept within the reasonable limits, although substantial damage due to severe earthquake, which have a low probability occurrence, is acceptable. Such damage is unacceptable in case of moderate tremors, which are more likely to occur. Buildings in which many people are usually present should have deformability features which will enable occupants to remain calm even in the event of strong shocks. Personal injury should be avoided. Damage to the neighboring building should be avoided. So what does it mean? So if there is a moderate earthquake, the non-structural element should not fail, and whatever damages occur due to that moderate earthquake, it should be within the reasonable limits. Although if there is a damage, also it should not be due to severe earthquake. If there is a severe earthquake, then the damage may be more, but it should have a low probability of occurrence is acceptable. Such damage are unacceptable if the earthquake is moderate. For a moderate earthquake, the damages should be within the reasonable limits. It should not cross the limit. But in case of severe earthquake, a substantial amount of damage is allowed, but it should not cause severe damage when there is a moderate earthquake. Buildings in which many people are usually present, for example, apartment building or a school or a hospital or a college, the movement of the people will be more. So deformability features, so deformation is allowed, but it should not collapse, and personal injury should be avoided, and it should not damage the neighboring building. So that needs to be taken care of. So under minor shaking, the main structural members should not be damaged. Under moderate shaking, the main structural members may sustain repairable damage. It should not fail. It should be rehabilitation and retrofitting should be done. And under strong shaking, the main structural members may sustain severe, even irreparable damage, but the building should not collapse. So these three things you have to, one should keep it in mind in earthquake design philosophy. What is that? Minor shaking, the main structural members should not be damaged. Under moderate shaking, the main structure may sustain repairable damage. Under strong shaking, the main structural members may sustain even irreparable damage, but it should not collapse. So these three things should be kept in mind. So here you can see that this is a minor shaking. So you can see X cracking, diagonal cracking from the opening to the corner of the building, but it is minor. The damage is not severe. Whereas in moderate shaking, the damage is non-structural component as well as structural component may undergo some damage, but these damages should be repairable damages. Whereas in case of strong earthquake, you can notice that the damage is severe. Here you can notice by this, yeah, here you can notice that there is a cracks developed in all the opening to the corners, as well as there is plastic hinges are formed everywhere, right? So it may be irreparable damage, but the building has not collapsed. So these three things you have to keep it in mind: minor shaking, buildings main building component should not get affected, minor cracks are allowed. In moderate shaking, damages are allowed, but it should be repairable, whereas in strong shaking, damages are allowed, but the severe damages, irreparable damage is also allowed, but the building should not collapse. Four virtues of earthquake resistant constructions are: it should have a good structural configuration, the load path should be continuous, and the connectivity between the members should be good. So it should configure well, and guaranteed lateral strength. It should have a, because when the lateral load is applied, it should be able to withstand that lateral load. So it should have a good guaranteed lateral strength. It should have adequate stiffness and good ductility. So when there is a failure, the steel members should not collapse or crush. It should be able to undergo deformation. It should not collapse. So in this building, you can see that in figure 2, diagonal cracks in the columns. The vertical load carrying capacity of the building is damaged. So structures not collapsing is alone not sufficient. Type of damage must be of desirable thing. If the beam has not collapsed, but the beam has not damaged, but the column has damaged, then what happens? The entire building will collapse. So it is not only structure collapsing. What type of damage? The damage should also be desirable, so that there should not be loss of life. Next, what are the methods of finding the earthquake forces? So there are two methods. One is equivalent static load procedure, and one more is dynamic analysis. In dynamic analysis, you have response spectrum method and time history analysis. So let us see what is this equivalent static load procedure. So equivalent static load procedure. In this method, the equivalent lateral forces for an earthquake is a unique concept used in earthquake engineering. The concept is attractive because it converts a dynamic analysis into partly dynamic and partly static analysis for finding the maximum displacement or stresses induced in the structure due to earthquake excitation. What does it mean? So this concept, it uses dynamic analysis also, as well as static analysis, to find out the maximum displacement in the structure. The equivalent lateral force for an earthquake is defined as a set of lateral static forces which will produce the same peak response of the structure as obtained by the dynamic analysis of the structure. So what does it mean? The earthquake lateral force for an earthquake is defined as a set of lateral static forces. Lateral static forces will be produced the same peak response of the structure as obtained by the dynamic analysis. Whatever from the dynamic analysis, whatever peak response you have got, so the same peak response can be obtained by applying the static lateral force also. This equivalence is restricted only to single mode of vibration of the structure. Only single mode is possible using this equivalent static load procedure. So what is the procedure? Assume that the structure is rigid. We have to assume that the structure is rigid. Assume perfect fixity between the structure and foundation. During ground motion, every point on the structure experience some acceleration. Dominant effect of earthquake is equivalent to horizontal force of varying magnitude over the height. Crudely determines the total horizontal force, that is base shear on the structure. So these are the assumptions. We are assuming that it is a rigid structure and there is a fixity between the structure and the foundation, and every point on the structure undergoes same acceleration, and whatever earthquake effect is there, it is equivalent to the horizontal force of varying magnitude over height, and it also calculate base shear on the structure. Total horizontal force crudely determines the total horizontal force at the base of the structure. So it is given by the formula VB is equal to W into AH. So what does it mean? We'll discuss in the coming slide. So VB is equal to W into AH. What does it mean? During an earthquake, structure does not remain rigid, that we all know. it deflects, thus base shear is distributed along the height. So the base shear is distributed from the basement to the higher level floors. So AH is a modified to consider the following effects. So what is this AH? So AH is modified by considering the natural period of the vibrations, damping of the vibrations, modal shapes, types of structures and place, that is under which zone the place falls, subsoil conditions, and what is the importance of that structure. So all these things is taken care to calculate the base shear. So VB is equal to AH into W. So then what is this AH? AH is equal to Z by 2 into SA by G into I by R. So Z is equal to zone factor. SA by G is equal to spectral acceleration coefficient taken from response spectrum. I is equal to importance factor. R is equal to ductility bar over strength reduction factor. Okay, so what is this? Each term Z, SA by G, I and R will study in the coming slide. So before that, what is the seismic zone map? The zoning map is based on expected maximum seismic intensity in the region. For example, in India we have 4 zones: zone 2, 3, 4 and 5. Earlier we had 5 zones. Now zone 1 is removed. Instead of that, we have only 4 zones: 2, 3, 4 and 5. So current trend worldwide is to specify the ground acceleration that has a certain probability of being exceeded in a given number of years. It is under development. So seismic zone map is considering 10% probability of exceedance in 50 years with the earthquake written period of 475 years, and is corresponding to 2% probability of exceedance in 50 years with earthquake return period of 2475 years. So seismic zone map, the varying geology at different locations in the country implies that the likelihood of damaging earthquakes takes place at different locations is different. Obviously, the earthquake damage is different in different locations. Thus, a seismic zoning map is essential so that the structures located in different regions can be designed to withstand different level of ground shaking. The seismic zoning map is revised time to time based on the experience gained over the past occurrence of earthquake. So to know the zone values, zone factor values, you can refer table 3 in IS 1893-2016 clause number 6.4.2. So for region 2, seismic zone factor for region 2 is 0.1. For zone 3, it is 0.16. For zone 4, it is 0.24. And zone 5, it is 0.36. So these zone factors are values given in the IS 1893 code 2016. So what is next? I value. I is what is the importance of the structure. So important service and community buildings or structures. For example, critical governance buildings, schools, signature buildings, monument buildings, lifeline and emergency building like hospital building, telephone exchange building, television station building, then bus station, metro rail station, food storage stations. So during emergency, all these things are very, very important. Highways, assembly halls, subways, cinema halls. These can be turned into a camp if there is an emergency. So all these are considered as an important structure. So for that, I value is taken as 1.5. Whereas for residential buildings, where occupancy is more than 200, for example, apartment building, it may be the occupancy may be more than 200 people. So their important factor, we'll take it as 1.2, and all other buildings, we take the importance factor as 1. In view of energy absorbing capacity available in inelastic range, ductile structures will be able to resist alternate lateral load without much damage. In addition to ductility, over strength and redundancy of the structure lead to the fact that an earthquake resistant structure can be designed for much lower force. Depending on the perceived seismic damage performance of the structure, characterized by overstrength, redundancy and ductility or brittle deformation, a factor R is introduced. So you should not design an earthquake building to prevent earthquake. You should not over strength it also. All these things, and it should not make it too ductile or too brittle also. So to control that, we have a factor R. So what is this factor R? So this is seen in table 9 IS 1893-2016's response reduction factor R for building. That is lateral load resisting system. R value for different lateral load resisting system. For a moment frame system, RC building with ordinary moment resisting frame OMRF, R value is taken as 3, whereas RC building with special moment resisting frame SMRF, R value is taken as 5. Steel buildings, it is taken as 3. Steel buildings with special moment resisting frame, it is taken as 5. Then for braced frame system, for different types of ordinary bracing, it is 4. For special bracing, it is 4.5. For a special braced frame having eccentric braces, it is 5. So for structural wall system, you all know what is meant by moment frame system, braced system, structural wall system. So for unreinforced masonry, it is 1.5, and unreinforced masonry with horizontal RC band, it is 2. Like this, all these values we can see in table 9, clause number 7.2.6 IS 1893-2016. And this is also, if it is a dual system, if it is a flat slab structural system, the R value is given here. And what is this SA by G value? SA by what is meant by SA by G value? SA by G value is a spectral acceleration coefficient for rocky or hard soil sites, and if the time period, if it is less than 0.4 seconds, then R value SA by G value you can take directly as 2.5, or else if it is less than 0.4 seconds, then and more than, and t value is less than 4 seconds, then we have to take 1 by t. So this is for equivalent static method, and if you are using a response spectrum method, then you have to use point B. This is also, this values are also given in IS 1893-2016. So if natural period is given from the graph, also you can note down the SA by G value. For example, if the time period is if the time natural period is 1, I'll show you. If the natural period is 1, okay, if the natural period is 1 and the type of rock is type 1 rock or hard soil, then SA by G value will be 1. If so, you can see the dark line is type 1 rock or hard soil. Type 2 is the middle less thicker line indicates medium soil, and the thin line indicates soft soil. So if the time is, if you know the natural period, so the and type of soil, you can easily calculate the SA by G value. So the first one is for the first graph is for equivalent static method, and second graph is for spectra for response spectrum method. And based on the types of soil also, we can determine the SA by G value, that is given in table 4, clause number 6.4.2.1 in IS 1893-2016. So next is response spectrum method. The response spectrum of an earthquake is considered as a very useful input for the seismic analysis of the structure, and is directly used for response spectrum method of analysis of structure. The method provides a technique for performing an equivalent static lateral load analysis of the structure for earthquake forces. It allows a clear understanding of the contributions of different modes of vibration to the overall seismic response of the structure. It offers a simplified method for finding the design forces for the members of the structure for earthquake forces. It is also useful in the approximate evaluation of the reliability and safety of the structure under earthquake forces. So thank you. So if you have any doubt, if you have any suggestions, mail us to lms.dtek@gmail.com. Thank you.